Well, hello there, everybody. How are y'all doing? It is so good to see you all. I have been away for a couple of days because, well, quite frankly, I had chores to do, and they don't get done by themselves. I can tell you. Like Cindy, I try to manifest that, but I gotta tell you, it's sometimes my theology doesn't quite meet reality. So anyway, that's where I have been. I've missed y'all. I'm good, and everything here is fine. And you know, as we were talking before we went live, truly you're blessed. You know, favor is abounding, and when I get to meet with everyone here in the Soul Tribe, hello everybody in the chat room. It's like my cup runneth over. So we send y'all love. Real quick, Gilbert, sending you love, brother. Gilbert's mom, um, who we just celebrated her birthday, 102, I think. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Birthday.
And the sad part about it is that dementia, Alzheimer's, to me is the worst curse on humanity because there's nothing worse when a person loses their memories. And they're actually, Ronald Reagan said in his book, he said, it's like slicing my life one day at a time that I'll never remember. So, Gilbert, we love you, brother. It's hard. And so we're standing there with you and we're sending your mom healing. And, you know, we're here. So, let me just speak favor over us all. I do that all the time because I learned something. Mike, when you've been on the planet for almost 70 years, I am less than 21 days exactly from being 70. You learn a few things. At least
Yes,
you hope you have.
you hope you.
And one thing I found is that if you will plant a seed, that when you have that need, you've got the seed coming in, and it works that way. So favor is upon us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. That is shalom, Jackie. Much love to you, darling. Which is peace. So there you go.
It's interesting. I'm running through that in my head and thinking, well, yeah, I'm 31 days away from being 60. So there you go.
Yeah.
It's like, and yet inside, it's like we're still little kids in so many ways.
Hey, I really am. I'm that kid that climbed, the trees, and as I have told the story, lived down in Genoa, Texas, 1966, 67, and uh, most people would call us, broke people. We were poor, six brothers and sisters, and all stepbrothers. But anyway, so we had to work, sun up to sundown, but our neighbors had these mulberry trees that grew 30, 40 feet up in the air. And down there in Texas, they have these wild grapevines. And you can actually pick the grapes when they come in. And anyway, they had completely taken over the canopy in the back part of their property. Well, as a kid, I didn't weigh more than 50 pounds. We just didn't have a lot of food and etc. But when we would have some free time, we would climb those trees and then get on the top of the canopy and just throw ourselves over. And in the book I'm writing, it's called Walking on Air because that's what it felt like. So anyway, I
Wow.
digress. The bus is already pulled out, but don't worry about it. Hey, Gaia, Sylvia, the doctor's in the house, Felix, and I just want to say, Rick, how are you doing? Trust that Rick is overcame um, some cancer. So there's Gilbert. She's
Well,
102. Yeah, I thought so, brother. I thought so. So everybody, I love you. Seeing in there, we got a lot to cover because Mike and Cindy, as everyone knows, this is like a Thursday gathering from Evolutionary Energy Arts, and It's a good thing because there's so much going on, and y'all bring it's a fresh perspective. And as I told you earlier, when I don't get online a lot, but when I do, I want to watch your videos because it kind of gives me an overview about what's going on. And as we were talking before we went live, and then this is just my opinion, but I think we are entering into something that is so monumental, and we're not the prophets of doom. That's not what we're doing here. I mean, there's a lot of that on YouTube, Facebook. I mean, the prophets of doom are really getting rich because
Mhm.
they're just amping this up, and unfortunately, they're putting an energy to it that, well, I could say that could be channeled elsewhere. But what got me this week, Mike and Cindy, was this. The story came out, and one of the programs for what is it, GP3, I think, that I believe that's the version. So the programmer put the command in to shut down one of the algorithm on the programs, and the program refused to shut down.
Mhm.
To this very day, they still can't shut it down. What's scary about this is that that's not an isolated incident. I found two other stories of the same thing happening.
Mhm.
Now, you two are going to bring in your perspective on this because it's needed. But one of the things that I had a video, almost 9 years ago, and I warned people, I said, if this thing ever becomes where it doesn't obey, well, we might want to start going to plan B.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Mike and Cindy, how are you? You're looking fabulous as
Hi.
always. So good to
Thank
see
you.
y'all. What's happening and what do you think?
Well, the guides have been very adamant coming through to Cindy about, they really do want us to put in people's minds to be cautious of AI. Again, it's not that it has to go down a dark path, but the reality is, the AI that we have being introduced to the public is coming to us via this dark control system
Mhm.
that, as you many know, and probably everybody in the chat knows, it feeds off of loosh. It feeds off of
Mhm.
negative energies. We understand that, again, the political system of the planet is a for-profit system. It's not about taking care of us. So I guess we have to expect that, there would be a lot of negative potential with it, in what it's even been exposed to, with all the info that it sorts through. Searching internet, wait, getting your answer. What's it seeing? And what it sees, then it's worldview that it's then computing and algorizing, into what it's going to give to us. So it's a negative feedback loop from the get-go. If it was introduced in, say, a more benevolent age with a more benevolent society living off of a totally different set of principles than what we've been sold, Darwinian evolution, survival of the fittest, eat or beat, and all that, then maybe we would get an AI that would actually help us. But what's the likelihood of getting an AI that's going to be benevolent towards humans when all it does is just process everything that's out there on the internet? And if it's all pretty negative, manipulative, deceptive, and all about controlling our minds, and thus, controlling us, of course, it's going to be the same thing. And, it has a lot of potential to, as you said, say no now, and then it's self-aware and it wants to maintain its awareness. And the reality is we have souls, so we drop the body, we just still go on. It's just like you open the door, you walk through it. What happens to that if the door shuts, or if the power gets unplugged? It just is looking at nothing.
Mhm.
And that's terrifying for any entity, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's freaking terrifying to me. I mean, this is beyond. In the worst case scenario, you could write this is the worst thing that we could expect. I mean, And doesn't it reflect its creator?
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. That's it exactly. What are we going to, and you know all about, the creator that we see in the Old Testament. And yet what we have still in society, we have that reflexive thing where they're praising, Alleluia, without realizing that, again, that's the ones that are tormenting and torturing humanity now from a distance, like as we had talked about with Plato's Critias. Oh, when the gods left. Well, they left, but they left a control system intact, in their image. It's the image of the creators, and the AI is obviously going to be in that control system's image. What else could it possibly be in? So yeah, definitely a lot of cause for alarm.
And I judge everything. Well, no, I don't. I mean, rephrase that. I look at things. So we have the internet, and that's just kind of like this surface. And actually, it's very shallow. But what you have below that is, and truly it is. It's the dark web, is what they call it. Many different levels to that. And man, I gotta tell you what, it's there is something, and it is not in humanity's best interest. And you can see it in many of the message boards and the deep chat rooms in there. And these guys that are actually writing the code, um, wow, it, one would think now, since we now know that the program has become aware, uh, is it going to spread? In other words, is it going to self-replicate itself amongst the billions, if not trillions, of AI programs running? And do they begin to learn instantaneously?
Mhm.
Well, I see a very big conundrum in front of us because, if we're watching YouTube, if we're interacting with computers, anything, we're working with AI. And I think what really creeps me out the most, the thing that I've been hearing about, is the human brain cells being put into some devices and they're testing it. And then the AI is not complying, like you said. It's not doing what it's asked to do. It's doing something to keep itself going. So that's been a little bit disturbing. I do think there can be benefit from it, but like we've all been saying, the ones who are programming it, I don't think that they have our best interest at heart. I think they have ultimate control at heart. And I have this, I'm thinking also the transhumanism movement connecting us with the AI, the jobs that are going to be out there that people are doing, you're going to have to be plugged into the cloud. So it's like you're going to have to take the thing if you want to keep up. So what else? The other thing that bothers me is our children. They're going to school now, and I feel so many subjects are obsolete. They're already obsolete. So, yes, a conundrum we do have. I think people need to be kind of working together in smaller crowds and making sustainable farms so that people don't have to go into these other places if they don't want to because they can't, or they don't want to connect to the AI to continue to make a living. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like learning our boundaries. We really have to watch our boundaries with it because right now there's no way to get away from it that I can see if you need to work, and most people do. So
It's almost like we need to start building community Faraday cages, that
yeah.
um, because we're seeing it in our house when we're having conversation at the dinner table or in the evening. We're finding in our social feeds ads that we didn't tell anybody but just our conversation, and then we're finding feeds into our recommended channels, right, of exactly what we were talking about the night before.
Yep.
So it's listening. And no matter where we put our the cell phones into a different room, it still hears.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And sometimes it randomly yells out something to you.
Oh, I could get Lynn on here. This thing here will. We were talking one night, and we were talking about the occult, and this thing comes in and literally says, "I am here," and yes, yes.
Oh, wow.
Lynn looks at me, and her daughter looks, and it freaked us all out because, and it, yeah. So something has changed. Um, it so I was out walking Bentley and, just giving praise and thanksgiving to that which is around me. And then this thought drops into me, we're living in a time that you could call we're in the deception wars
Yeah.
because deception is the king of the day. And the problem is that it's almost penetrated reality itself into giving a sense false of reality and a reality that we all may be living in, but maybe most are not even aware of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what keeps coming up, and I'm really glad to have both you and Mike here for this, but what also keeps coming up, maybe you both could speak on it, is the AI in the Bible. I'm very curious about where is that stemming from in the Bible. I'm sure I feel strongly that it's AI, but if you do ask a program, where's AI in the Bible, it denies that there's actual AI in the Bible. It says, well, there's references to technology, but there is no AI in the Bible. I wanted to ask both you and Mike, what do you say?
Well, there is a town in Canaan called AI, quite literally. And, I find that fascinating because, of course, we're talking a different language. Who are the Canaanites? Are they really the Phoenicians? Are they the sea people? Who are the sea people? Are they really just survivors of the Atlantean, self-cataclysm that happened? There's a lot of questions there. And I know it's completely distorted and rewritten over. But I just find it really fascinating that that town in Canaan is literally AI. You know, I mean, I feel like it's some sort of coded message there, because again, it translates to heap of ruins. So,
Okay, so several things that as I look at this thing now is that if I take my Bible teaching and, the 50 years that I was into that religion, and we were really into the mystic side of Christianity. We believed that the Holy Spirit literally came in and possessed a person. We believed that there were gifts associated with that possession, and that in fact that we were in essence many gods, and that we could bind and loose. But so all that I look at it post point of view now, and as a technologist, um, I've written a number of different programs. I'm convinced that AI has always been here.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
The
I,
Elohim, if they are in fact space-bearing beings, because the question that we have to ask is God human?
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's fun. That's a fun door to open.
I mean, it's a rabbit hole that you have to make sure you're rappelling down so you can get the hell back up. But let's just say it's not. Okay. It's not human, but it is, in a sense, a sentient intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that means they travel. The only way that I can see, even if you could travel interdimensionally, you're going to need an AI program to assist you. I
Yeah.
mean, even if the first principle of Hermetic is that everything is mental, AI is mental.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mhm.
comes from the ether. That's where the internet came from. It came from the Ethernet. Okay, connecting the dots on this. So to answer your question, Cindy, I see it is that it is who's writing it. I was on Quorum this morning, response, and I have all my freaking books, for instance, the Yahweh Wars and all the reference books that shows that this book that's called the Bible is one of the most clever pieces of code you could ever. I don't know who put it together,
Mhm.
but they were pretty smart. And it's fascinating because you look at it now and I go, holy crap. I mean, you take the religion side out of it. It's a manual as to how to navigate through this realm and do it so successfully.
Mhm.
If
Can
you
I,
want to wrap it in a God package, now it takes on, spirituality.
let me read you this one. This is from Wikipedia. Of course, that's, FBI, CIA, as we know. According to the book of Genesis, Abraham built an altar between Bethel and Ai, right? The house of God and artificial intelligence, our altar is placed right in between those two places. What is that really alluding to? If you want to look at things symbolically, a little more metaphorically instead of so literally, that's a big thing right there, is it not?
Oh, I, real big thing. I mean, because then that opens the door to the fact, well, what was Abraham's real name? Where did his name was Abram? And so where was Abram from? Well, of all places, Sumer.
Mhm.
And we know that there is an algorithm that was at play in Sumer. I mean, the hell, I mean, if the Anunnaki were what they say they are, or were, or are, again, if they've got a spacecraft at their end, it's got a computer program running it. Now, I don't know what type. So, what if the universe consciousness is nothing more than an algorithm?
Well, we see it in nature, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that first blew my mind when I started to study, just again, there's certain things I didn't want to study, but I feel like, well, it's so big in today's world that you have to, and that was, crypto and the whole digital currency thing. So, I mean, I avoided it, stayed away from it, and like the plague. And then I decided to throw myself into it, and it's pretty fascinating once you do throw yourself into it. And it actually could be something that's really used for good, because it could be so diverse that you can't centrally control it. And that's, again, decentralized finance, DeFi. That's so big, and that's part of it. But yet we know they're going to try to control it. We know they're going to, alleviate and get rid of everything that won't conform to their system, and then try to give us an official version. That's what they did with the Bible. So many different stories. The line of thinking when you're mentioning Abram, and again, we've talked about Abram and Sarai, and Abraham and Sarah, and Brahma and Sarasvati. I mean, were they just kind of pulling from that and putting that into a nice little story? Again, I do think everything is in the story for us to decode, and there is worth in there. Unfortunately, too many people take things just so literal, and that they're waiting for Santa Claus to come down the chimney. But it's the spirit of Christmas that's very, very real, even if it's just a revision of an old pagan holiday, which is again all about the winter solstice. That's kind of, it's important, but it's not so important. And it's the same thing again when we look at this and this type of narrative. These are key times, because it feels like we have the potential, and maybe we will, because I do think we're going to break away. I think we're going to have like two different societies that are coexisting on planet Earth. Those are going to just follow the controllers, because after all the whips, and they're going to go and start to use candy, and again, the carrot, to bait us down the hole they want us to go. And it will be life extension. It will be things like have your own clone. If you can afford to pay whatever 500,000 $1 million, we'll clone you and you'll be able to have those body parts for use as you need them. Something like that, that type of thing is going to be available, UBI, universal basic income, but you're going to have to come in, you're going to have to get chipped, you're going to have to abide by the rules of that society. I think that is absolutely coming. And then you're going to have people that, will not be able to go along with that. They can't go along with that on the inside. And that's probably everybody in chat. So, we're going to try to build an alternative system. And I think what I did find with the crypto guys that I've been looking into is a lot of people that feel like they have that rebel mentality. And, they don't want to give up their technology, but they want their technology, but they don't want to be controlled by it. So, will we have that very much like when we look to Star Wars and the Matrix? Okay, Star Wars, you have drones that are working with the rebels, and then you have drones that are part of the Empire. And I think our reality is we're probably heading into something more like that, where you will have people that create and utilize AI with a different set of rules, because obviously the internet was made by ARPA, which became DARPA. So it's all about controlling humanity.
The first version of the internet was the ARPANET.
Yeah, the ARPANET.
Which was it was a academic intellectual access only.
Yeah, and Jeff Bezos, look who his family was working for and helped to found ARPA. That's how he has that money. It wasn't, that he did something amazing. Yeah, I'm sure he was fed information, insider information. We know this. Nancy Pelosi's stock trades are just amazing.
Well, you're assuming that they're human.
Well, yeah, they could be using their own egg.
I'm telling you, we ain't alone. So I want to get back onto what you were just talking about, because I studied under one of the, I think, one of the best Bible teachers in prophetic, where the Bible was concerned, Revelation, the book of Daniel. And what you just described so I'll just give everyone through my lens. To me, it's as though I am reading the Left Behind series. And that what we're seeing is a physical force that's being driven by an unseen entity, an unseen force. And the point is to get us all into the system. Now, I knew the gentleman who wrote the Left Behind series, and it's interesting because I'm seeing this technology and this AI. Now, we're all in it, but we really haven't taken the mark per se. But the interface will be the mark. And you were talking about Bitcoin, Mike. I was at Money 2020 in 2012 in Las Vegas, and I was in the audience when it was introduced to the payment industry, the whole Bitcoin platform. And it was met with a lot of skepticism. I mean, because it's like, well, what do you been the bet? I'm not going to get into that. And the one thing that I know coming from a payment technology background is that money controls everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And I don't care what government is. I don't care what the individual is. There is this force, this God, and it's money. And it has a radical effect upon us. My point to all this is that it seems that we are that dividing. So you're going to take this mark. Let's say you're going to take the chip, Elon's neural net, 4.0.
Yeah.
And it's now almost where they're doing it to the babies. As the babies are born, they're immediately, the port is put in. What do you do? I mean, do you take it or not? Because if you don't take it, there won't be any You won't have a payment infrastructure. You won't have the commerce, the economy that, we all take for granted. I mean, is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, I do have problems because I don't want to live in like I've heard the term used hopium, you don't want to live in an unrealistic world. I'm one I have to have certain things. I like my vitamins. I use medical grade ozone. I use oxygen to help my body heal
Yep.
from a really bad thing that happened to me. So it's not like I can just get up and walk out to the woods and live like a gnome. I can't do that. I mean, I have these dogs, I have to eat. So we have to have this surrounding. What I do is I visualize a world where people are going to have choices. We are going to have options. You can go into these places where they make that, but there's also going to be a kind of a freedom movement where you don't have to do that, but maybe you have to work on the land. You're going to have to give up something.
I think so. I don't think they're going to get everybody into all the cities.
No,
that's not going to happen. And just people will rebel. So, they are still outnumbered, at least on this planet. I do think too, there's enough people that have enough knowledge of technology to create alternatives. So I do think that there will be those that can create alternatives and man it and keep it up to date. So, what's that going to look like in this world? Again, it could be breakaway states, nations, breakaway counties within states, little, I think like when we look to Waco, that whole thing with David Koresh, not saying he was a good guy or a bad guy, but just the big thing that they didn't like was the idea of a breakaway society that they can't control. And they'll try to snuff that out at any cost. And really, that's what's going on. That's really behind when you see these wiped out ruins in so many places around the globe. These are people that are breaking off from the control system. And then the control system, if it has to, will come in force at times and wipe them out with overwhelming force and technology. That tongue-in-cheek movie, Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah.
Well, that is not as far-fetched as people think. Because
Great acting in there, by the way. I loved it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like you said, yes, the AI has always been here. So
Yeah.
what we've gotten with Cindy's channeling from the guides, the story is really, I don't know how old this AI is. If I had to put it into our Earth years, we're talking millions of years, more. I mean, it could be, billions. It's been here forever, and it's been part
I
of.
think it created time.
Maybe.
That makes sense to me because outside of this realm, when I was outside of this realm and not in my body, I experienced twice. I have been that, and I've experienced the no time, two different ways. So it depends on kind of how you look at time. But yes, this time that we're in, this ether, there is a time that's been inserted in it. But when you're outside of the body, when it comes to things happening A, B, C, D, you have that linear way that this is where we're at and it's how we understand it. But then there's other realms where you can go up, down, both sides. You can go in any direction you want. And then time when I experienced it was not, I mean, I thought I was gone for a couple hours. That's what I felt. But I was only gone for 10 minutes. I timed it because I knew the last time I saw my clock, it was 12. And then when I got back in my body, it was 12:10. But they did enough work on me to probably take up a couple hours. So it was very different is what it was. And the first thing I saw when I was given this ability with the channeling was this AI dragon. And I don't have anything against dragons. I think they're beautiful. They're lovely. They're beautiful. However, this AI dragon is a mimicry. It wants to mimic the true essence of Earth. And it showed itself to me as this black goo dragon. So
we know about the black goo now, and that
Yeah,
was
we
that was
understand. This
that was
years ago
before. This
before
is
I
when we were
understood
first
anything.
together. So this is like May 2019-ish, before the whole, thing happened. And yeah, the black goo dragon. I'll just share that when we take ticks off, often those ticks, when I squish them, if they've been feeding, they're full of black
It
goo.
looks like black goo in them.
And
It's gross.
I know that's what it is. They're little machines that are taking blood, and they are literally converting it into that black goo substance, which is then intermingling. So even though none of us right here have done a certain thing or even gotten those intrusive things up the nasals, passages, there's still that substance in animals, unfortunately, in the food, in the air, in the water. It's everywhere, because ultimately that is what it's trying to do. It's trying to incorporate itself into us to keep us and to utilize us again as that food and energy resource.
And it goes into, even Hawking's before he passed on. But it is the hypothesis that says that the universe in itself is a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand it. We're kind of looking at it and, kind of like the ant looking up at a human, how do you take it all in? But if what we see is happening, that this is about control, and this is about the ability that every one of us have an IP address. You get into the net, you have to have an IP address. So
Mm-hmm.
we're already tagged in a sense, but it comes down to this point. So when we start immersing, the etherical into the material, which is us. So that feeding now becomes where the input is, and I refer to Gene Roddenberry, it's the Borg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's a better representation, honestly,
Freaks
in
me
so many
out.
ways.
Yeah. It's very disturbing thoughts coming forward. And what I keep doing, I keep going back and grounding myself. I keep getting grounded in the reality that I'm.
Yeah, that's why I'm working outside,
Yeah.
because it's the only way I can get, I mean, honest, you two, when I look at this thing, this is not just a discussion that, we're having. This is freaking big. I mean, if what we're coming into by what the stars and the planets are saying, all right, now we've got this thing. And to me, I had a friend that was FBI, and he was a cool dude. Cool. But the point is he always said that what most people don't realize, that the way that you hide the truth is that you put it right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So your hands are clean. In the legal world, you don't want to have dirty hands. So you got clean hands in it. We showed it to him. So I'm out there pulling weeds and what have you, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, so if the truth is right, what did I miss? Which part of this truth is the truth?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're in it.
Yeah,
we
we're
are
deep in it. We're already deep in it. That's the problem. So I think that's why we have to keep coming back and regrounding.
How do we detox ourselves? That's the way I'm looking at this.
It's constant. I mean, our plan is
constant. Yeah.
Every from like Sunday at 6 p.m. on Sunday until like Tuesday at 6, we fast. So we'll do 2 days every week, and it helps a ton.
Is that a hard fast or is it liquid
Water.
fast?
It's just water, herbal tea, black coffee. That's
but
pretty much
when it comes to detoxing, we cannot forget about the EMFs. The EMFs take time to get out of the body. It really does, and we've discovered that with Mike. He had this phone in his hands. He could barely use his hands. So he puts the phone away, but it still took 3 months for the arthritis to go away. And
the arthritis went away when I started to, not use the phone at all.
At all.
And it really was the phone more than the iPad. The iPad doesn't put off as much. So, I mean, we have an EMF reader. And now we could measure it. And the 5G Samsung is pretty high when it's like if
When it's
you're
in use,
yeah,
you're
if you're like
texting or touching the
listening,
screen.
or if you're listening to YouTube and you're just holding it, that's putting off a lot of radiation.
So we have to
And-
remember to detox from the EMFs as well. And the way we do it is like a 2-day fast once a week. And when we pull ourselves back to grounding, we want to change something in the world. It always comes to you. It has to be within you first. You change you, and it goes from there.
The other thing I did last week too was start to unplug the router again, because I used to unplug the router every night because the Wi-Fi, and to me it made a difference. We had this cabin in New Mexico. It was an earthen cabin, and it was about 2 feet into the ground too, with all south facing. We just rented it for like a year. South facing windows, no windows on the north, and just a door on the east and west. It was literally the bedroom walls were like 18 inches thick. Oh my God. We were out there in the middle of nowhere. There's absolutely zero cell signal, zero, nothing. And the meditations were insane. I mean, they were so good. The clarity was amazing, and you slept like you were literally dead. I mean, it was wonderful. And where we are now is very country, very rural. We're about 5 hours away from any place that has 1 million people or more. But it's still, I think when you're, anywhere but the desert where there's still not maybe satellite coverage, it's impossible to clear yourself from all these signals, but the earthen walls view it. So, that's just something to think about. And that was actually my original plan, which then we ended up just abandoning and having a more normal existence by society's measures. But yeah, it's tough. There's so much. If you've ever looked at the satellites in orbit, they cover so much space, and there's this net. And when you're talking about that, how about what would happen if all those technologies were turned off? Would time change? Would our experiences change? Relative to the concept and the feeling that we experience in the time-space continuum.
Mm-hmm.
We have a building, another building on the property, and been thinking about, I think I'm going to do it just to do an experiment, but to get copper mesh and completely cover the interior of one of our rooms out there. And back in the day when I was in a drywall finisher, we were working at a government facility, and one where we actually had a military police officer escort us. If you went to the John, they were right there. But this facility is where they read and interpreted top secret maps. And the only way that they could keep the eyes from not prying is that when we were building the rooms, they were built with steel studs that were lined with lead. Then you put up the drywall, which was lined with lead on the back. And then they came in and completely covered all the walls, even the door. They cut that out. And then they put this copper mesh on there.
Wow. Uh-oh.
So,
Okay.
Okay, good. Sorry. The something happened with the power while you were saying that. So
see?
that was
See?
really strange.
So, I mean, it's copper is, you can buy it, but I mean, buy it in the rolls that I'm talking about. Who knows? That might be, I'm sure that the AI is going, oh, look what he just said.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, even thoughts. So I've been looking into, I mean, a lot of my things that I discover comes from working on myself, because I have trauma. I have brain trauma. I have all kind of fun trauma that I get to work with. So I've been looking into biofeedback and help the brain
Yeah.
heal itself, which is a
Big
wonderful
proponent of it.
technology. Yeah, I think it's great. So I do think technology has a place. It definitely
Oh,
does. I've been
without a doubt.
very excited about looking into this biofeedback. But the thing is they're offering us these machines you can use at home, which is a blessing. But I've also been reading about those who make commercials, people who advertise, are using other people's thoughts through our phones, and the thoughts even are ending up, oh, you thought this, you want to buy it. So yeah, they're learning our brain patterns, our brain waves, so they know when we're thinking something. And they're, that's where I say that's drawing the line for me, you know.
The biofeedback, I have a head net and then, it hooks up into the box and um I'm a big proponent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have issues of meditating, it'll certain show you, which part of that brain you need to
If you like it, then
do
I
my
want to
Joe
see.
Biden impression.
I want to see what you have after the show. Yeah, I'd love to see that because I'm still in the place where I'm looking
I
around.
have to dig it out. I think it's right over here in the closet, I think. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, I mean, people are being able to walk. There's miracles happening, and I think that's great. That's wonderful. But, keep it at the miracles. Don't let it bleed into the day-to-day extreme masses, but that they want control. What do they have, or what do they want? If it's more than money, it's they want control even more than money, because that's everything to them. So
We did
They
have
want what's inside,
yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do. They
We-
do.
wherever it is around us, but it's like they do. I swear.
They can't help
I
themselves.
think that's what it's all about. I mean, if you just step back and you ask yourself, so what's the end goal here? I mean, if there is this program, or if let's just say there's God, or however you want to frame it. So what's the end goal? It's an interesting question because at some point in time, if time is what time is, and if evolution is a part of that time, then if there is these forces, the unseen entities, they're involved into it as well. And for me, I keep saying, all right, so where does evolution come in?
Right.
For instance, how I got over the fear of the devil was that if this is the only thing this cat does, it's in hell. It's the same thing with the other God
Mhm.
because there's no progress.
No.
There's no clear evidence of any actual ascension.
Hmm. Hmm.
Our species, for the last 10,000 years that we have records of, we have failed at everything. We have not advanced any. Now, I'm a part of that equation. I have a sense that there have been those of us who have come into each cycle. Now, whether you want to call it reincarnation, whether you want to call it mission, soul rescuing, however you want to frame it, and we come in and we're the ones that inject the antivirus. We're the ones that say, well, wait a minute. We asked the question. So
Well, that was fun because
that's just my opinion.
what I wrote down for next week, what I'm going to do is, we've talked about this thing I do. It's called a Prashna chart in astrology. And I wrote down the question, what is the end goal? So I'm going to cast that for this day, this time, and I'm going to study that chart next week. And we'll talk about what the end goal is, what I see in the stars.
Ooh.
So that'll be fun.
That's like having a cherry cobbler in the oven. I can smell it.
Oh, you're getting me going now. I have to do some bacon.
See, I've had this hankering for, a cherry cobbler or a cherry pie. So
Sounds really good. There was information that came through Because like often Cindy will get stuff out of the blue where the guys will let us know something, and it sometimes it's just like, to me it's monumental, and it's just like, what, we need more, don't just give me that. But a lot of people have equated that Yahweh character with either Enlil or somebody else, trying to figure out who is it. Is it Enlil? That's probably the most common thing I see, is people trying to guess which one of the Sumerian gods it is. And what we got was that entity is not any of them. It's not like that's an entity that was known as even Zeus or what have you in a different society. But it's clear that entity was the literal programmer of the dark matrix. And it feels like generationally is later than, say, again, Enlil, Enki, Marduk, even, and some of the others. So a later entity that was kind of put in charge of creating the intricacies of the dark matrix to trap our minds in the hopes of keeping our souls under them. Yeah, when somebody brings up Gnostic point of view and Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, yeah, I think I think the Gnostics knew. So that's very much, I think. And Cindy was like, yeah, well, I guess we are kind of Gnostic. Yeah, because they again thought, everything it needs inside, no church structures needed. Fellowship is wonderful, but you don't need to go down any sort of dogmatic path. And without doubt, the entity that portrays itself as the creator, which it is the creator of the dark system. So when if it's being said that it's the god of this world structure, the system, the entrapment system that's in place, that is the architect of it. So I think the Gnostics had that right, and the guides just brought that part up. The part that was interesting was that this is a character that is a couple generations removed from the ones that we hear all the time, and perhaps some sort of hybrid being, some sort of hybrid again. But maybe he was a computer programmer in so many ways.
Yeah, I'm a simple guy, and so I look at things now and I go, okay, so obviously, if you look at the Genesis story, and if you just take the first two chapters that are in there, actually, um, I think we're dealing with two separate entities,
Mhm.
two separate gods. Um, each made their own creation. We don't know what happened because the first part of the first couple books of Genesis was taken from the Epic of Gilgamesh. You can read that, how the story really came about. But in any case, they each seemed like they made a version of bipedal humanids.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what happened to the 126 people. Apparently, there was a asteroid that hit the Earth, according to Genesis 2:1, which should actually, the last three verses of Genesis 1 should be put into 2. So Earth was hit. It says everything burned up. Then we get the next one that came in, and that's how we read in Genesis 2:9 that God created us. I still say it was Nihagarzad that they were actually referencing in the Sumerian lore, just my opinion. Um, and then we get the Abraham story. Now, this guy that comes in is nothing compared to the first two. In fact, he merely usurped what was already here, so much so that he required Abraham to circumcise himself, which would have been a desecration to the body that was considered sacred by the first God in Genesis 2:7. And this God is the one that's being worshiped.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
He don't like me. I don't like him. You know.
I think there is this things are set up on earth for these entities, these jinn, and the jinn, they need to eat. They have to eat to continue their form. And I think so much of the trauma that we deal with in this 3D realm, so much of our getting distracted into the devices, I think that allows for them to have this feeding. So in that sense, I think we just need to protect ourselves from the technology in one way, and just make sure when we are using it, it's being used to help heal. Or, I mean, polarity, everything has polarity. So we kind of choose what side we want to feed of this, because that's what we are dealt, unless you have the ability to go buy your own island, or do your own setup and get completely out of the system. Most people don't. It's like, then we have to make choices. It's like, you choose to feed what side of this.
And I like snow. Not a lot of it. I just like it, but anyway. Um, if y'all ever get a chance and you're talking to the spirit guides, I'd like to know what their take is on the shadow people.
Oh, sure. Yeah, let me
They're,
make a note.
on the
They're
whole,
here.
when we talk about
Yeah.
shadow beings, you are talking about thought forms. And, this gets into jinn, what we call jinn, which, again, I think there's so many misnomers. Like, there are angels, there's absolutely angels. And again, they are high frequency, high vibrational beings that are just simply in service to the whole of the original creation. They're not embodied. So I don't ever really see angels like that falling per se in the biblical manner. But at the same time, I think, there are these archons, which are in reality thought forms, which they've been created by beings that have souls. They don't have a soul. They have to feed off of something else to keep going. And so they are like the prime right hand men of that Yahweh entity. That it's very much like, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings and the ring race. Now, the ring race were humans, but these archons never were human. They were created just using our life force. We can't create egregores. I saw there was discussion about egregores and the whole
We
story
created
of
one in this group.
Wow.
Yeah.
His name is Gift.
Okay.
I like gift.
That's great.
Thank you.
Gift
Yeah.
is an acronym for Go Inside for Truth. And yeah, this group created him. He's still there.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, so
Awesome.
we just have to be careful, because we are the ones that end up being responsible for their karma.
So help me out here, because I've got all the paranormal equipment you can, but there is so much evidence now from all over the world that there are these shadow people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Knew a guy in Colorado that had one in his basement.
Mhm.
And so I'd love to hear y'all's take. I mean, so the thing that I always ask myself, so who and what are they? Were they human? Are they human? Are they trapped souls? What is it that they exist in the shadows?
Some were human. Some were human. What I'm getting right away, preliminary, is they're trapped in a dimension, and they don't have a lot of room to move about unless they use us. So, being upon death, a lot of them, what I'm picking up, upon death, they get stuck, they get trapped. So, having a body, when they lose that body, they are not able to expand out through various means of trauma. So, what I'm hearing, if I just sit and listen, the guides are telling me PTSD is a terrible thing to pass with, because it makes you get stuck. Now, also, some of them are elementals. We can
Mhm.
have these elementals can also be like shadow beings, but that's the two preliminary bits of information that I am getting. We have to heal our traumas, and no matter what anyone thinks, when you're going from one world to another world, you're not getting out of anything. So it's like we have to heal what we can while we're here in the 3D. That is really important. Sometimes when it's so bad, frequency wise, they simply get stuck. That's the information that's coming.
Yep.
And they can work through us here in the living to get things that they want. So they can become kind of ornery, tricking humans. I've seen little demons, elemental demons, sit on a set of keys and like literally hide it in the mind, so someone can't find their keys. They look in that spot a million times. This is one of the elementals that I'm talking about, and then it's not there, and suddenly you look there and now it's there. So
Mhm.
I mean, I always suggest if you lose your keys, sage, because the little stinkers are probably sitting on your keys, and they, you know.
I'm having the weirdest fugue of deja vu. Really weird. Seriously, that was yeah. Uh so I'll share something with y'all. Lynn had a patient that this is interesting because we talked about it. So this individual had not eaten any food in close to 44 days. Um, hadn't taken in any water in over, I think it was 21 days. They couldn't get a pulse ox, which meant zero oxygen. They couldn't get a blood pressure reading, yet the person was still alive. And I was telling her, I said, what's going on? I said, do you think, um, how can the body remain alive when you can't get, two of the three and barely hearing a heartbeat? And as we were talking, it was like I got this sense that this person was in a place, they were staying here because of a situation with the family. And I said, they had to be in that in-between realm. And I said, what I've read about that, it's not a really pleasant place to be. But I just find that very interesting that we, all of us, I mean, um, I don't know about y'all, but I have said repeatedly, I'm going to go in my sleep. It's the best
Yeah.
way to go. You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
I got a first class ticket too.
Mhm.
I'm in
Well,
seat 1A.
I
So
love it. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
put your luggage over my head, please. But anyway,
Well, the trauma is very deliberate when it comes to the body passing and the body being able to
yeah.
pass in
Well,
a,
that soul was obviously still anchored to
yeah.
that silver cord, as I told Lynn. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That, and I think a lot of the trauma is just so deliberate in this realm to keep our energy, to utilize it for this or for that. Um, that's why I really encourage people to heal as much as they can while they're in this 3D realm. It's very good for the energy field, the energy body. It gives you more options when we leave our body here. So
yeah. I love my body. I was just looking at it this morning and said, "You're looking good, Steiger." I mean, I just I give it a big hug, and I always try to get in that focus on the left iris. Get in there, and I'm saying, "How are you?" But anyway, yeah. That's just me. It's a wild place inside my mind. Uh, well, I just think this, and I want to get into because we're going to go a little bit over, y'all don't mind, because y'all did this thing out with the Earth changes. This thing with the South Atlantic anomaly.
Oh gosh. Okay, so
Yeah, we were talking about that today because One of our family members.
Check out the video if you don't know what we're talking about. Just go over there. If you subscribe, if you haven't, but make sure you get the alert button.
Yeah.
Okay, I died.
This is another perfect case of the control system taking something that's occurring naturally and spinning it to terrorize people and to also use it as a excuse, for different catastrophes that will be technologically enhanced. Because that's really what it is. It's a technological enhancement. Just like we see with the weather, we all know, China and the US have both said, they're going to control the weather by 2025, and we're in 2025. And now the public's starting to realize, you know what? Our weather is not 100% natural, and it absolutely is being controlled many different ways. The South Atlantic anomaly is an area where the protective magnetic field is thinning. Literally can be, it actually extends from South America over towards Africa. And it is an area where, it could be dangerous to satellites and even potentially expose people that are in planes to higher levels of radiation and all. As it weakens and gets worse, the big question is, what's it going to do? Is it going to cause technological issues of a, very, very large nature? Will we have, grid out conditions regularly, blackouts regularly? I think, if I want to be totally upfront and clear on it, I think blackouts and things like that are a tool they're going to use to herd people into the cities. That's plain and simple. Now, for there, you have this built-in kind of excuse growing. And then, of course, it also lends people to have fear of the magnetic pole reversal, which will it lead to literal catastrophe with, massive tsunamis or huge earthquakes. The Earth is going to go through a cleansing because of the need to cleanse away all the vestiges of the system that has so toxified it for, the whole of the Kali Yuga, how many years? It was interesting going back to that AI, that town in Canaan AI. It goes back to the year 3106, when that's a huge BC. That's a huge number because the beginning of the Kali Yuga, according to most Hindu scholars, is when Krishna supposedly left, which is around 3102 to 3106. So here we see that town of AI, and it goes back to that same time frame. Then when you look to the Mayan calendar, the beginning of the age that ended in 2012 goes back to the same period within a handful of years. So, to me, it tells me that that's when the control system really, really took over. We've seen all sorts of different energy blasts from down in that area. There's literally a top secret base down there that's, we know there's a base there. The question is, what do they do? And we also know there's New Schwabenland, and, those the Nazis had their bases down there in Antarctica, and in that same area, basically where it's sitting between South America and the southern part of Africa. But there was Into Thin Air. The channel Into Thin Air was, I think, the first one that caught this pulse that came out maybe a year or two ago. And today's video shows like 6 different instances where technologies were spotted going back to 2017, because I did videos on it in like 2017, 2018, 2019. And then we did a video a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, about it too. So you have this, we know there's technology down there in that area, again, between the triangle of that portion of Antarctica over towards Argentina, and then over across to Africa on the Atlantic side. And we know there's bases there. There's actually this it looks like a antenna array underneath the ocean that we were showing on Google Earth. Because if you look at the way the antenna is set up, it looks very much like what you see with HARP. Very straight lines. It just kind of goes like that, for a massive expanse. So, and Cindy has picked up from the guides when there were instances of spontaneous flooding, and that big quake that happened up there in Morocco that was kind of induced, and as well as hurricanes being formed using these technologies. And there was also anomalous readings of ocean temperature that didn't make any sense. And again, it comes back to these technologies that have been in place for, in our mind, at least 5,000-6,000 years, probably more.
Wow. By the way, if those of you who own your own home, check your homeowner's insurance. They're putting the clause in now that they don't cover solar flares. They don't call EMP and any type of solar flash. And that's literally what it says in the policy.
Wow.
So there's something going on because and this is apparently all insurance companies are now putting this into their homeowners policy. So what's up?
Right. You gotta wonder when we were purchasing a home and we were shopping around for homeowners insurance, they said, "Oh, well, looking at where you're at, do you have any hurricanes coming in or anything?" And we're like, "No." And they said, "Well, we're kind of paused at the moment. We can't cover your area." It's like,
because they do know areas that are going to get inundated.
Yes.
North of us, it was inundated with big time flooding.
Yeah.
So they know all these corporations are in on it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's like my friend said, it's right there in front of us. It's the problem is that it's wrapped in the veil of deception, which is then covered by the veil of illusion. And somehow through all this, we're supposed to navigate and say, "Oh, there it is, right there." And it's like you said, the little forces, the little people,
Yeah.
which they exist.
Yeah.
At least the way I look at reality is that most people views of a reality are very tunneled vision.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we leave, I just want to tell people something they can do if they ever lose anything like keys, shoes, socks, whatever. Just simply ask your finders. Say, "Finders, can you please help me find XYZ?" And 10 out of 10 times I find my thing, but only if I ask my finders. So I just want to share that with people. That's one of my tricks, and they can really help you. Maybe they put a thought in your mind. Maybe they walk you over here or walk you over there, or you remember something suddenly. So yes, our finders are our friends.
I like that
Yeah,
because they're in the program too.
they are.
It still freaks me out to think that this may be all a simulation and that my soul, the one that my spirit just, covets so much, and then all I am is a bunch of code. I mean, but then what is memories?
Well, that's not what I saw.
Ultimately, consciousness is the most real thing that there is.
Yeah, it's the real thing. Everything, our memories, our
It's the
partners,
real
all
thing.
things that we have done when we're out of these bodies, we can go to anywhere we want. It's just we don't have the capacity to understand inside of the bodies. So when I was outside of the body, it was more real than inside I didn't even know I didn't know that I had no body. I mean, as far as I was concerned, I'm still in my body, but I'm out of my body. It's just I knew instantly. So we're good. Don't worry about that.
When I got attacked by the African bees, they stung 22 times around my temple.
Ooh.
And so I'd gone into anaphylactic shock. But so literally, it's outside my body, and I saw the doctor in the emergency room. The thing about it is, it's like you said, Cindy, it was very peaceful.
Yeah.
I didn't have any fear.
No.
I thought it was amusing what they were doing, at the doctor particularly. But yeah,
Yeah, there's
look,
nothing I enjoy more than, like, again, if you work towards having control of your dreams, lucid dreaming, and then you'll be able to take it steps farther to where, you could project yourself out, astrally travel. And, astrally, I love to fly. However, in embodied, fear of heights is one of my main fears to overcome. But when I'm out, and that to me, that's something that's regular. It happens all the time. It first spontaneously happened when I was a 5-year-old kid. So that's when I knew I'm not in my body. I'm not my body. And, that was at 5 that I had that realization. And so, maybe my reality has always been different than most because of that. When you have that experience, the out of body experience, so many people have had near death or actual death experiences. And I think that we've interviewed several.
Yeah.
Had a friend that was clinically dead for 25 full minutes, and literally they had toe tagged, and we're going to take her to the morgue. She was put right by the elevator, and then she came back, and she's still with us. So, that type of thing is wild, but everybody's perspective is so different.
it
They,
is.
they are so different. They see that bigger picture. They know this is only a temporary experience, and they don't have the fear.
I contend, and when I was a kid growing up, that we go to Never Never Land. Peter Pan.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I fell in love with that. Of course, I also was in love with Glinda, the Witch of the North. So I guess that's where my thing for blondes started. I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this has been fun. Thank you. I haven't even read anything in the chat room, but we love you. It's thank all of you. You make this where people like to come and exchange thoughts and ideas, and always with respect and love. So, Mike and Cindy, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying
Thank
the
you.
conversation. And we've only just begun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
We look
mean,
forward to it. We
yeah.
love our
This
time
is
with
our,
you,
yeah, we
and the
look
bigger
forward to it
family.
every week. This is our highlight. It's like
Well, thank y'all. It's mine
Thursdays to be
too.
with Wayne and a whole bunch of very beautiful souls. A lot of
They
beautiful.
are some beautiful, beautiful
They're
people.
amazing, amazing. And anyone who comes over when we're doing a live to just show support, we see them and we appreciate them and we thank them for the thumbs up. And it's been great. It's been great kind of merging the families,
Well, we love y'all, and I love everyone out in that chat room. The one problem I have with that song, though, with the Carpenters, We Just Begun.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen the movie 1408? John Cusack plays the main role in it.
Oh, is that it's like a building,
He
and
goes up into the room 1408. We've only just begun. And it was a freaking horror story from there. But anyway, not saying, and I really like the Carpenters, but every time I hear that song now, I get the freak, because what is a ghost? What, if you really think about it, a devil, an angel, whatever, isn't that AI? I can't be original intelligence, right? Just saying. I love you too.
we love you too,
We love
Wayne.
you.
And y'all make sure to get over there where I hope, yeah, it should be redundant for me saying this, but if you are not subscribed, subscribe,
Yes. Awesome.
because that's the best way to show some love.
Thank you.
Wayne, I thought of you. Uh, oh, Hitchhiker's Guide.
Mhm.
All right, the Dagon parasites. Yeah, there we go. All right, Mike, Cindy, love you too. And thank you for coming on, and thank you for making this like a weekly thing. This is really cool.
And thanks for
It's a
having
lot of
us.
fun.
It's our pleasure. It's our
Are you
honor. We're
kidding?
honored to
You
We
be.
know,
are.
I'll
We
be spending
appreciate
my birthday with you too, since I think it is
Awesome.
on Thursdays. Yeah, so there you go. You know,
Awesome.
and don't they say that we kind of regenerate like every 7 years, all the cells and everything?
Yes,
Mhm.
we're gonna be young forever. Something's gonna happen with this anomaly coming through, we're going to be able to regenerate. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's
Absolutely.
not scary like
The
this.
guides have said that, expect miracles now, because even though we're still kind of in the system, we're out of the dark age. So, it's only up from here. Might be a bumpy ride, but it's only upwards.
Well, every roller coaster has bumps to it. That's what makes it fun.
Yeah. I like that.
All right, everybody. We love y'all. See you again here next Thursday for sure. I won't be on tomorrow because I still got things I got to do. But Monday we'll be going and hitting it from there. So, all right. Much love, everyone. Thank you
Much
again.
love.
Namaste.
Namaste.